Now we're doing section again 3-4, but this time we're doing examples 4 through 6. So let's look at page 113. And it gives you the percent equation. So problems involving percents can be translated into the percent equation. This single equation can be used to find a percent, to find the part of the whole represented by a given percent, or to find the original amount when you're giving a percent and the part of the percent it represents. So this here is the percent equation. It says the percent of the whole is equal to its part. Okay, so how does that translate? So basically it's the percent. I'm just going to use my symbol sign. So percent. The word of means times, okay, percent of the whole, that's the whole part, okay, is translates to an equal sign, so is equal to its part. If you can always remember or try to get your problems, whatever they are, for percents, into this form, percent times whole equals part, you will be able to consistently solve the problem in the same way. So, for example, let's look at example 4. It says what, and I didn't use the word over, it was the percent size. So what percent of 85 is 17? So what it's asking us, I always like to do this, what percent of, that's times, 85, in fact, I'm going to write it as a dot, times 85 is 17. So now we have an equation. What percent of 85 is 17? It's written into the same format as this. The whole is 85, and if they're asking what percent of this 85 is that part, 17. This is our unknown, right? So I'm just going to substitute in a P for my unknown, okay? And so in this particular case then, if I write this as equation, I have P, I'm going to rewrite it out, 85 equals 17. You now have equation, you're ready to solve for P. Well, they're multiplying by P, so what do? You're going to divide both sides, this isn't anything new to you, by 85. This becomes 1, so you're left with P equals, divide that out, and you get, or reduce it, and you get 1/5. Or if they ask for a decimal, you can divide it even farther, and you get 0.2. Okay? Now, did we answer the question? No, we solved for P here, but the question says what percent? Well, we haven't written our percent. So remember in examples 1, 2, and 3, we had to convert this to a percent. So to convert this to a percent, we must move our decimal over 2 places, and then we add a percent. So in this case, the percent is 20%. Okay, so this is where you're applying what you did on examples 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so basically what we're saying is 20% of 85 is 17. And you can actually check that out. All right, you could do a check step. Plug in and take your calculator, take 85 times 20%, and you'll get 17 if you got the correct answer. Okay, so we move this, I want to point the direction we move that to the right. All right, now let's look at example 5. Example 5, and before I do that, I'm going to move this over because I need to try to keep things in line here. So I'm going to move this over real quick, if you don't mind, just so that we have everything on the same page. Equals 1/5 equals 0.2, and I'm just going to say, then what we do, we moved it over 2 places, so we have to add a 0, right? And so we get 20%. Okay? All right, example 5. It says, so here they were, the unknown was the percent. Now this says, what is 45% of 235? So let's just write this first. What, there's my blank, is 45% of his times 236. So all they've done here, we've got our blank is 45% of 236. So looking up here, percent times whole, percent times whole. So that's all they've done. If you notice, equal part, this is the equal to the part. It's just that they flipped it, right? I could take this and I could say part equals percent times whole, right? All I've done is move the part over there and move this over there. So that's just rewritten into a different way, but it's still the same percent equation. So our unknown is, so basically it's saying what number, okay, is 45% of 236. So basically you have n equals, you're going to drop the percent and can write it as a decimal. So if I drop this percent, remember that means I'm dividing by 100. So that's like saying 45 over 100. Let's just do that. Times 236. Okay. That's actually what I'm doing. So the other way to do it is you can say n equals, you're moving your decimal to the left 2 places and you get 0.45 times 236. You should be able to go from this step to this step and not even do this step at all. Okay? So you're going to drop the percent, move the decimal to the left 2 places, and now all you have to do is multiply 0.45, and I'm going to use the time symbol here in this particular case because we have decimals and I don't want you to get confused with what I'm doing. Multiply that out and you get n equals 106.2. All right, so 45% of 236 is 106.2. Notice we can estimate and do a check step. Let's estimate this. 45% is almost 50%, half, right? So what is half of 236? What is that? That's 108 something, I want to say. Half of that is 108. So 108, half of 236, I want to say is 108. This, I'm just doing an estimate. Check. All right. So 45% is just a little less than 50%. 106 is just a little less than 108. So I really quickly just kind of did an estimate to say, did I get the right answer? That's what they're estimating there. Let's look at example 6. It says 78 is 130% of what number? First of all, let's just convert this to equation directly as it's written. 78 means equal, 130% of means times, right? What number? Okay, we don't know what number, but actually in this case, if you remember the part always equals 30% of what? So it's 30% of that whole number. That's that whole number. If you must know. So we don't know what that whole number is, right? So I'm going to write this as 78 is 130% of some whole number. Okay? And now I'm going to convert, always remember, you're going to be converting your fraction or your percent, okay, to a fraction or a decimal, and then solving the equation. So if I convert this to a decimal, I can convert it as a fraction or I can convert it as a decimal. So I can either put it over 13 over 100, like we did here, or I could go ahead and drop the percent and move the decimal to the left 2 places. So that gives me 78.1, whoops, that was 130. I had almost messed up on you, 130. And so here's our decimal. We're going to move it to the decimal 2 places. So we get 1.30 or 3, drop the percent, times a W. Okay, so now we're ready to solve for W. They're multiplying by W, so we're going to divide both sides by this decimal. And you can actually write that as 1.3 or 1.30 because it's going to be the same thing. Divide that out on your calculator here, and you end up getting 60 equals, and remember, this canceled out, so that gives us W. So 78 is 130% of what number? Now if you look at this, you're saying, well, this is the whole number. You got to realize this is above 100. So when it's above 100, you actually are going to have a larger part. When it's 100 or below, you're going to have a smaller part. So don't let that throw you. And then you can also estimate this too as well, or to see if you got your answer correctly. So the main thing is, remember, you're going to be converting your percent to either a fraction or a decimal before you solve. All right? So you're going to convert the percent to a decimal, right, or a fraction before you solve. And if you can always get it set up into this type of equation and ask yourself, like, what blank percent of 85 is 17? Is equal, percent of is multiplied. If you can get it all set up right, then it's pretty easy to go from there.